Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Week 9 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. Got Week 9 kicking off Thursday night with the Packers and the 49ers. We're going to break down this Showdown slate like we always do. We will start off at the top of the player pool and work our way down, talk about all the playable options. This is definitely an interesting slate. We're going to have guys that are really cheap, that are going to be playable. We're going to have some $200 guys, some $400 guys that are definitely going to be in play. There's going to be a lot of value just due to all the injuries on both sides of these teams. Both these teams are really dealing with injuries. We've had some positive COVID tests as well from both teams. On the Green Bay side, their backup running back or third string running back, A.J. Dillon, tested positive. And then they had to also, keep some guys out for this game because of close contact, like Jamal Williams. He didn't test positive, but he was in close contact with A.J. Dillon, so he's not going to be able to play. On the other side, the San Francisco side, we had Kendrick Bourne test positive, so he is most likely going to be out, not going to play. All signs are pointing to this game still playing. I'm recording this video on Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon. I'm going to post it to YouTube on Wednesday night. All signs are still pointing to this game playing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have to move things around because of all these positive tests. But for now, the game's still on. There's still a showdown slate to play. Once again, we got huge tournaments on DraftKings. Another $2.25 million tournament with the $1 million to first place. Seems like we're going to keep getting millionaire makers for pretty much every Thursday night and Monday night game. I mean, that's what we want, man. We want Showdown to be a very popular, thing that attracts people's eyes. It's great for content. People love Showdown. I enjoy playing Showdown as well. I don't take it, in terms of volume. I don't play the same amount of volume on Showdown that I do like on a main slate, but still gives you something to sweat while you watch the game. And I'm always tuned into these primetime games. So we'll start off at the top of the player pool and work our way down. Just before we do get started, guys, as always, would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. Be sure to hit the subscribe button as well. Click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And if you do really enjoy these videos and they help you out a lot and you want to get more content from me, I do have more content available on Patreon that is linked down below in the description. If you are interested, feel free to check out the Patreon link down below. But let's go ahead and start off at the top of the player pool. So Davante Adams, our most expensive option. He's $12,400 in the flex. He is $18,600 as a captain play. Davante Adams is very expensive, but I think this is definitely a slate where we're going to have some value. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to jam in Davante Adams. He's been the wide receiver one in fantasy so far this year. He's been an absolute stud, and that's with him missing some games. Even against Detroit when he got hurt, he's just been a complete monster. When he's healthy, he's going to be a, just complete target hog, going to get double-digit targets pretty much every week. With all the injuries, Green Bay's dealing with in their backfield, if Aaron Jones does not play, this could be a game where we see the Packers go very pass-heavy, just throw the ball a ton. I would not be surprised if that happens, and we know when Aaron Rodgers drops back, he's looking for Davante Adams. This matchup isn't great. I don't really like targeting the 49ers, but Davante Adams is matchup proof. He's going to find ways to get open. Aaron Rodgers is going to find ways to get him the ball. He's the top play on the showdown slate for me. I think he projects even a little bit better than Aaron Rodgers. If I can find a way to pay up for him, which should be pretty easy given all the value, I think Davante Adams is a great play at the top. I think, I'm not really going out on a limb there. It's a single game showdown slate with Davante Adams on it. You should probably be playing him. So really like Davante Adams. Looking at the two quarterbacks, you got Aaron Rodgers for $11K, and then Nick Mullins will be starting for San Francisco because Jimmy Garoppolo is out for this game. So obviously Aaron Rodgers, another guy that, he's been great this season. He's had some low floor games, like he had a really bad game against Tampa Bay, didn't have the best game against Detroit. But you take away those two games, he's been over 23 DraftKings points in every game besides those two. Rodgers has had a great season. He's been great for fantasy. Again, it's not the best matchup against a good 49ers defense, but I'm going to be trying to find a way to get in Aaron Rodgers as well. I think we're going to have enough value to do so. If I'm playing one lineup, I probably want to start my lineup with Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, whether I'm playing one of those two guys at captain or going a little bit cheaper at captain. I'm going to want to try and find a way to get those two guys in because I think, if the Packers score, let's say they score 4 touchdowns in this game, I think it's probably likely you're going to get 3 passing touchdowns from Rodgers, and at least 1 or 2 of those are most likely going to go Davante Adams' way. If Aaron Jones plays, maybe Aaron Jones will get into the end zone as well. But if Aaron Jones is out, we're going to see the Packers just go complete pass heavy if I had to guess. I think Rodgers is going to throw the ball a ton, probably 40, 45 times. Even if they get ahead, we might just see them keep their foot on the gas pedal, just try and keep building a lead. It's going to be definitely something to watch. That is one of the big injuries we're going to have to watch heading into Thursday, is the status of Aaron Jones. He has not played the last 2 weeks. This is obviously a short week for them. They just played on Sunday against the Vikings. Last update that we got was that it's really just going to come down to a game-time decision. His status is up in the air right now. If you read the little quote right here, it says that Ryan Wood of the Green Bay Press reported that they said, we'll give him up to game time and then we'll figure it out. That's what the coach said for the Packers. So it's really going to be a game-time decision. We'll know 90 minutes before the game starts, around like 7 o'clock Eastern time if he's good to go. If Aaron Jones plays, I think he's a really good play just because the Packers' backfield is so thin. Without Jamal Williams, without A.J. Dillon, I think Aaron Jones is going to be leaned on pretty heavily if he's able to play. We know he's a workhorse back to begin with, but with no Dillon, with no Williams, they're going to lean on Aaron Jones even more. Like, we might see him get 20-plus touches. I think it's very likely he gets 20-plus touches. I would assume they don't rush him back if he's not healthy. So if he plays, I'm going to assume that he's fully healthy and that he can handle a full workload. He would be another, strong pay-up option. I think I would rather go to Rodgers and Adams if I can, but definitely like Aaron Jones. We do have some really cheap guys. Like, we still have, Trent Taylor we're going to talk about, who is really, really cheap. And if you play him, that's probably going to allow you to pay up for those top 3 guys. So if Aaron Jones plays, I do like him just based on the fact that there's no Jamal Williams, there's no A.J. Dillon, there's really nobody that's going to take carries and snaps away from him. Jones is going to be a workhorse if he's able to play. But obviously, we'll need to keep an eye on that heading up to Thursday. Like I said, I'm recording this video on Wednesday afternoon, going to post it to YouTube on Wednesday night. But then you got Nick Mullins for 9,200. Nick Mullins, not as much as a priority, but I think, just getting exposure to the quarterbacks makes a ton of sense. He looked really good when he came in and replaced Jimmy G in that game against Seattle. Actually threw for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure all that came in the fourth quarter as well. Or he came in late in the game. I think it was late in the third quarter. Replaced Garoppolo and then had a really good game to finish it out. That was a really good matchup. This is obviously not as good of a spot against Green Bay, but it's the quarterbacks. Like, I say this all the time, you're probably going to want to play at least one of the 2 quarterbacks. Rarely do you see the winning lineup in Showdown have neither quarterback in there. Like, it just doesn't happen. Quarterbacks are usually 2 of the highest projected players just because of how involved they are, with the offense, whether it's, passing touchdowns are going to contribute in pretty much every passing touchdown. Like, let's just say the 49ers score 21 points. Very likely that Nick Mullins has at least, probably 200 yards and 2 passing touchdowns, which is going to give him 16 Draftkings points. So I think, playing Nick Mullins makes plenty of sense. Obviously, if I can only choose one of the 2 quarterbacks, I would rather play Aaron Rodgers. But I think there is going to be enough value to where you can play both Rodgers and Mullins, which makes plenty of sense to me. Really just comes down to roster construction, though. Like, in lineups where I'm playing Devonta Adams the captain, I'm going to be prioritizing getting Aaron Rodgers into those lineups. But maybe, if I'm playing like a Brandon Ayuk at captain, then I would definitely want to pair in Nick Mullins with him because, if I'm assuming Ayuk has a big game, that's going to mean, Nick Mullins is contributing to that. So I like both quarterbacks. If I can only play one, I prefer Rodgers. I think there will be enough value, though, to where you can play both. We'll talk about that value in a second. But Brandon Ayuk, 8,600. Last week without Deebo Samuel, pretty much as their wide receiver 1, he had a really good game against Seattle. 8 catches for 91 yards on 11 targets. He did get into the end zone as well, 23 Draftkings points. That was a pretty good matchup. This is a much tougher spot against Green Bay. I assume Jair Alexander, if he plays, I think he's been dealing with an injury, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm assuming he's going to play. I assume he probably shadows Ayuk, or at least is going to be, on his side of the field. So it's a tougher spot, but the targets are going to be there. Like, they don't have George Kittle either. There's no Deebo Samuel, no George Kittle. Like, this 49ers team is really thin in terms of pass catchers. Kendrick Bourne also tested positive for COVID, so he's probably not going to play. I mean, Ayuk should get the targets. It's a tougher matchup, but San Francisco's probably going to be playing from behind. They're probably going to have to throw in this game. Right now, if we do look at the Vegas odds, the Packers are favored by 5.5, so the 49ers are 5.5 point dogs here. You would assume they're going to be throwing to keep up with the Packers. I think it's very likely that the Packers win here just due to all the injuries that the 49ers are dealing with. They're going to be playing from behind. The target should be there for Ayuk. Although it's a tough matchup, I think he is a pretty good option at 8,600. I would rather play him over like Jerick McKinnon, Jarrett McKinnon, he's probably going to be splitting touches with JaMychal Hasty. Those are pretty much the last two healthy backs for San Francisco. We already know that Jeff Wilson's going to be out for this game. Raheem Mostert's going to be out for this game. And Tevin Coleman got hurt last week against Seattle. He's going to be out. So that leaves McKinnon and Hasty. If I have to play one of the two running backs from San Francisco, I think I would rather go to Hasty. He did get more touches last week. He got 12 carries and 1 reception. If we look at Jarrett McKinnon, he only got 3 carries. He was involved in the passing game, though. He did get 4 receptions. Both guys had about an equal game. I think McKinnon finished with like 13 fantasy points. Hasty finished with 10 fantasy points. Both guys found the end zone last week. I think it's going to be a pretty even split between the two. I think it kind of depends on game script. Like both of these guys can catch passes, but McKinnon has shown to be the more explosive pass catcher overall. If they're playing from behind, which is likely, I think we'll see more McKinnon than Hasty towards the end of the game. I don't think this is going to be a situation I really go out of my way, though, to get exposure to. I don't really love targeting backfields when there's kind of like a 50-50 split. But game script, I think, is going to favor Jarrett McKinnon, especially if the 49ers get behind. I think McKinnon's going to be on the field a little bit more. So I guess if I had to play one of the two San Francisco backs, I think I'd rather go to McKinnon just because he's the better pass catcher. He's more involved in the passing game, and I think the 49ers are going to have to throw a lot in this game. So I do prefer McKinnon between the two, but I think overall that's probably going to be a situation I avoid. Like I said, if I can find the salary, I feel a little bit better about Brandon Ayuk than I do, McKinnon or Hasty. But then, there's so many, you can just see it, all the questionables, COVIDs, IRs, there's just so many guys out for each team. Looking at Mostert's out, or on IR, Samuel's out, Lazard's on IR, Jeff Wilson's on IR, Kendrick Bourne, he got COVID, so he's probably going to be out. Jimmy Garoppolo's on IR. There's just so many injuries on both sides. We got to scroll down a little bit till we can find the next guy that actually is healthy, and that's Robert Tonyan. $6,400 for Robert Tonyan. Probably not a guy I feel like I'm going to be playing much of. I just think his price tag's kind of in no man's land for me. If I can find salary, I'd probably rather play Hasty over him, or I can just drop down and play some cheaper guys. Tonyan's a good athletic tight end. He's a really good pass catcher, but how involved is he going to be? I really don't know. We know that when Aaron Rodgers drops back, he's looking for Devonta Adams. Probably won't be on Tonyan much at $6,400. I think there is just, there's other guys that I'd probably rather go to in that price range. Like I said earlier, Kendrick Bourne tested positive for COVID, so, he tested positive on Wednesday. The game's being played on Thursday. I assume he's not going to play, so we'll scroll down to the next guy, Jordan Reed. He's going to be back soon, but I don't think he's going to be back for this game. He was limited in Tuesday's practice, but for now it seems like Jordan Reed is going to be out. So then we do have the Packers defense for $5,200. Me personally, I don't love playing defenses. It is a good spot for the Packers facing a backup quarterback, but I just don't feel like the upside is really there for defenses, so I'll probably be off the Packers defense. Ross Dwelley, we do need to talk about. So at $4,800, he's actually playable for me. I think he is an option because no George Kittle. Jordan Reed still most likely not going to be back. So that leaves Ross Dwelley as the starting tight end for the 49ers. He did catch a touchdown last week when he came in and replaced George Kittle. And he's a guy that has shown, when he gets playing time, he can be solid for fantasy. He can be a guy that, they look to in the red zone. He's nowhere near as good as George Kittle, but, he's not priced like George Kittle. He's only $4,800. I think he does give us some value. I think he makes plenty of sense as a cheap option. Like I said earlier, I expect the 49ers to be passing a lot. They're going to be playing from behind most likely. Dwelley should get plenty of targets, probably 6 to 7 targets, maybe 8 targets. At $4,800, with no Kittle and likely no Jordan Reed, I think Ross Dwelley makes plenty of sense as a cheap option. You got the 49ers defense, probably going to be an avoid for me. I don't really see myself playing either defense. You have the kickers you can go to. The kickers are always fine to play. Usually I only prefer to play one. Rarely do I play both kickers. We actually saw last Showdown slate, I think it was the Monday night game between the Bucs and the Giants. The Bucs kicker, Ryan Succop, was actually in the winning lineup at captain. I think he had 3 or 4 field goals in that game. It can happen every now and then. You'll see a random thing like that where a kicker scores, 18 points and they make the winning lineup in the captain spot. But I would not play one of the 2 kickers at captain. That's just something I don't really do. You can play one of them at the flex. That's fine to do, but usually I limit myself to one kicker. Rarely do I play both unless the value is just really, really thin. And that's not the case. We do have some pretty good value that we'll talk about. But then you have Marquez Valdez-Scantling for $3,400. I think he's fine to go to. His target volume it's not secure at all. Like, you never know what his targets are going to look like. Even in the weeks, when Davante Adams was out, like, Marquez Valdes-Scantling didn't really do much. He hasn't really done much all season besides week 1 against Minnesota. There's probably other cheap options I'd rather go to. I don't really see myself going to him at 3,400. Jay Sternberger, I'm probably not going to look to him. Just doesn't get the volume, not involved enough to where I would want to play him when there's guys down here, $200 and $400 that we can consider. Like Juszczyk, I'm not playing. Malik Taylor, probably not going to. But I do want to talk about Trent Taylor. So I'm assuming that Trent Taylor is the next man up to replace Kendrick Bourne. Since Kendrick Bourne tested positive for COVID, he's going to be out. That leaves pretty much Brandon Ayuk and Trent Taylor as the top 2 receivers for the 49ers, since we already know that, Deebo Samuel's out, George Kittle's out as well. So last week, Taylor was involved, got 3 catches for 32 yards on 4 targets. Kendrick Bourne didn't play that game, obviously, but Bourne not going to play here. So with no Kendrick Bourne, no Deebo Samuel, I really like Trent Taylor as a value play. I don't think I'd be playing him at captain or anything, but as a $400 punt play, he makes a lot of sense. He's going to be pretty popular if I had to guess, but it's going to be really hard to get away from him, because even if he only scores, like, let's say he has 4 catches for 40 yards and he scores 8 fantasy points, like, there's still a chance, even if he scores 8 points, that he could be in the winning GPP lineup just because he's so cheap. And if you play Taylor, that's really going to allow you to play whoever you want at the top. You can play Davante Adams, both quarterbacks, maybe Aaron Jones if he plays. I think Trent Taylor is a top value play with no Kendrick Bourne. I think he makes a lot of sense. At only $400, I'm assuming he's next man up. I don't really know who the 49ers have behind Bourne, because we already know Deebo Samuel's out, so that leaves Bourne, who's not going to play. Next receiver is Trent Taylor. They have River Craycraft, but I've never heard who this guy is. It looks like he got reverted to the practice squad, so I don't assume he plays. I know they cut Dante Pettis, so he's not going to be out there. Richie James, I don't think has really done anything all season. He's barely played. So yeah, I'm assuming Trent Taylor's next man up to replace Kendrick Bourne. So at $400, he's a really, really good value play. It's going to make a lot of sense as a kind of punt value. And then we need to talk about the Green Bay backfield. So like I said earlier, we'll have to keep an eye on Aaron Jones' status. I think he probably pushes it out and tries to play here. But assuming Aaron Jones does not play, if he is out, that pretty much leaves Tyler Ervin and Dexter Williams as the only 2 healthy running backs for Green Bay. Dexter Williams was on the practice squad, but I believe he did get called up. He'll be active for this game if Jones is out. Both these guys are $200. I think if I can only pick one, I probably feel a little bit better about Tyler Ervin, just because he's actually been active pretty much the whole season. He was active last week. He's a guy that they use in the passing game. He hasn't really gotten any carries this season. He's only got 4 carries on the season. But I know they'll line him up a lot at the as a receiver. He does have some games with 2 targets, 3 targets last week against Minnesota. He's a really good pass catcher. And if no Aaron Jones, like, they're going to use him a ton, especially in the passing game. I assume they'll use him in, like, screens and stuff. He might even get some carries as well. I don't really know what Green Bay's going to do if Aaron Jones is out. Like, I don't know who's going to get the carries, whether it's Ervin or Williams. I assume it'd be, like, a pretty even split. But if I can only choose one of these 2 guys, I think Tyler Ervin is the guy I feel a little bit better about, just because he's been, with the team the entire season, whereas Dexter Williams, I don't think he's played in a game at all this year. Or he was active week 7, but he didn't get any touches, whereas Ervin's actually been getting touches this season. He had a stretch where he was inactive, but he was active last week, and he got 3 targets. So if Aaron Jones is out, Tyler Ervin becomes another very, very strong value play. If you play Taylor and Ervin, like, in your flex, I mean, that's literally going to let you just play whoever you want. You plug those 2 guys in, like, you have enough salary to literally just play all the expensive guys. Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, if we're playing Ervin, we're assuming that Jones is out, so we're not going to put Jones in there. But we can play Nick Mullins, and once you do that, you still have 10-6 left for your flex spot. So, like, obviously you're not playing Kittle or Williams, but you could play Brandon Ayuk and leave salary on the table. You could play Jerick McKinnon. Like, you're just going to have so much salary to spend for whoever you want if we have no Aaron Jones, because then that's going to give us value with Tyler Ervin. I think Trent Taylor is a really good value just overall, because we already know Kendrick Bourne is out. So those are the top 2 value plays for me. Obviously, it's dependent on Aaron Jones' status. We'll have to watch that heading up to Thursday. If no Aaron Jones, love some Tyler Ervin for $200. with Kendrick Bourne, testing positive for COVID and most likely going to be out, I think that makes Trent Taylor, a really, really good value at $400. But yeah, we touched on, all the plays from top to bottom, hit on the top studs, hit on the value plays as well. Let's talk about roster construction real quick before we do end the video. So as I mentioned earlier, we have some good value on this Showdown slate. Trent Taylor, I think at $400 looks like a really, really good value, assuming Kendrick Bourne does not play, which is likely. And then if Aaron Jones is out, we have Tyler Ervin, who is really, really cheap and is pretty much going to be like one of the last healthy running backs for Green Bay. You could play him and Ervin together, and like I said, that pretty much just lets you play whoever you want. I could easily see doing that and just leaving salary on the table to make my lineup a bit contrarian. You probably don't have to play both guys. For now, since we don't know the status for Aaron Jones, we'll just start with Trent Taylor as sort of our like punt value play. And now we can really, for $400, I mean, that's just going to allow us to do whatever we want. So we can pay up for Davante Adams at captain, who I still think probably the highest projected player on the slate, probably has the highest ceiling as well. Jam in Aaron Rodgers as well. And we got the salary to play both quarterbacks. So let's go ahead and put Nick Mullins in there at $9,200. And now we got $5,400 left for our last two spots. In terms of what we could do with our last two spots here, we're not going to have the salary to pay up unless we play Tyler Ervin. But, I didn't want to plug in Ervin in there just because we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Jones. But let's see. If we wanted to play like Brandon Ayuk, that would leave us $2,200. Not really going to have enough salary to play anyone that I'm confident in. If we were to play like JaMychal Hasty, that would leave us $3,600. So then we'd have enough to play, we'd have enough to play Robbie Gould. So you could do that. You could play Hasty and then one of the two kickers, or you can maybe drop down from Hasty and play. Let's see. I don't really like Tonyan at his price, but we could play maybe Ross Dwelly for $4,800. That would leave us $6K. There's really nobody to play at $6K, so can't really do that. I guess we could play Ross Dwelly, but then we would have to leave salary on the table. You could play one of the two kickers if you wanted to go that route. But I think the most viable build with this sort of build probably makes to go with JaMychal Hasty and then probably the kicker Robbie Gould in there. I mean, I still like Hasty. I think it's going to be a pretty even split between him and McKinnon. Game script. If the 49ers have a lead, you'll see more Hasty, I think. If the 49ers are playing from behind, I think you'll see more McKinnon. Likely they're going to be playing from behind, so McKinnon probably makes the most sense, but we can't really get him in this build. He's $800 more than, we got. If we were to play McKinnon, we'd have to play, like, probably Jay Sternberger, and I don't feel too confident in Jay Sternberger, so I think that kind of covers that build. Now, we could look at maybe some different ones, like maybe we could do like a Brandon Ayuk at captain. I think he's going to be a pretty low-owned captain, but I think there is upside for him. It's pretty much like the number one pass catcher for San Francisco. If we're playing Ayuk at captain, we definitely want to pair him with Nick Mullins. Playing Ayuk at captain, going a little bit cheaper, is going to allow us to pay up for Adams and Rodgers as well. If we plug in our punt value play in Trent Taylor for $400, then that's going to leave us enough to play pretty much one of the two kickers, whether it's Crosby or Gould, you could plug in there. It's pretty much like the same lineup we had, except the only difference is instead of Davante Adams at captain with JaMychal Hasty, we're playing Ayuk at captain, so with one of the two kickers. Kind of the same build, really just like a 2v2 difference, but that's kind of what it comes down to on these showdown slates. You're going to be making like 2v2 swaps. A lot of your lineups are going to be very similar. It's just going to come down to, one or two guys. Like you'll see, you'll have a lineup in second place, win probably nothing because of all the ties. And you'll be like, damn, I was just 2 points off. It really just came down to I played, Robbie Gould and Mason Crosby scored 2 more points. And that's what, put me in second place over first place. It can be frustrating to sweat these showdown slates. Like me personally, I don't look at the final, like my winnings until after the game's over. Like I just don't want to stare at my winnings all night because it's just the swings are just so massive. Like one play can swing you from winning a shit ton of money to literally winning nothing. Just how these showdown slates go, but I think that's what makes it fun. But yeah, guys, it's going to be an interesting showdown slate. We have a lot of studs at the top that I want to pay up for, and we have the value to make it work, which is something we normally don't have. Like normally value is hard to come by on these showdown slates, but I think Trent Taylor looks really good as a value, assuming Kendrick Bourne doesn't play. If Aaron Jones is not able to go, that's pretty much just going to leave Dexter Williams and Tyler Ervin as the two healthy running backs for Green Bay. And if I had to play one, like I said earlier, I feel a little bit more confident in Tyler Ervin. He's only $200. Like, you got some good punt plays that we normally don't have. So makes for an interesting showdown slate. Definitely leave salary on the table in your lineups. I think this is a slate where it makes a lot of sense to leave $2,000, $3,000 on the table just to make your lineups a bit more contrarian, to make them less likely to be duped. I could see the winning GPP lineup leave a couple thousand on the table. This does feel like a slate where that's probably likely to happen. But yeah, guys, I hope you did enjoy the video. Hope it did help. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button before you do get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And if you do really enjoy these videos and if they help you out a lot, be sure to check out my exclusive content on Patreon. That's linked down below in the description. If you are interested in that, be sure to check it out. It's optional, but for those of you that are interested, the Patreon is linked down below. But best of luck on Thursday night, guys. I hope you did enjoy the video. Hope you win some money. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Good luck. Peace.